Welcome to the Quickie Talk. My name is Heather VanCura, and as a woman who's been working in technology primarily with Java developers for the last 15 years, spending a good majority of my time traveling around the world and speaking at developer conferences, it became one of my most popular questions, what we could do about getting more women into technology. So I developed this talk, which is Top 10 Ways to Ally for Women in Tech. But as I began to give this talk, I started to think about it more myself because honestly, even as a woman working in tech with primarily men, it's not a topic I ever gave any thought to. It was something I never really even noticed. I was so focused on my work. But as I started to think about this topic, I think also I started to think more about diversity in other types of ways. So that's why it's called Beyond Women in Tech, right? Diversity in terms of types of people, types of thinking, and what can we do as an industry to affect change around this? So I've modified the talk in that way because as I looked at some of the numbers, I started to look at some of the numbers, it was clear that there is this disparity, not just for women working in technology, but also for people of color, people with different abilities, people from the LGBTQ community. So interesting enough, though, as I looked at the statistics, it's a little bit depressing. And even since I started looking at it a few years ago, I haven't seen much change. But the actual impact of having diverse teams is quite significant. So there's studies that have looked at not just it being the right thing to do, but the smarter thing to do in terms of more ROI. So companies who have diverse teams have a greater ROI, return on investment, so they're making more money. And studies by McKinsey have suggested that there could be an increase in gross domestic product of $4 trillion. So obviously, there's something that could be done here that's not only the right thing to do, but the more profitable thing to do. And studies looking at teams in terms of collective intelligence, so teams that have both men and women with a diversity of thought actually produce smarter solutions. So their collective IQ rises regardless of the individual IQ. So I looked at it from that perspective. And while I don't like to talk about this subject particularly, it's not one of my favorite topics that I have a passion about, and it's not part of my job, I think it's really important. And I think the people that can make a change in this industry are the people who are already in it. And as I started to look at some of my beliefs, when I did start working in technology, and from a lot of people that I've talked to, when you talk about diversity, they think often that technology is a meritocracy, and it is talked about in that way quite often. And I think I believed it too when I first got into the field. I thought if I put my head down and worked hard, that was all it was going to take. But what I found was actually decisions being made around technology is the core, but you have to do three really important things to thrive in technology. So you have to work hard always and be at the top of your game, but especially you have to be growing your network. You have to be looking at ways to increase your visibility and ways to expand your influence. And I think that's true for all people working in technology, but definitely for people who aren't the majority working in technology, which I think still to this day remains white men. So the discussion around this is often women in tech or girls in tech, but let's look at it beyond that. So, and often too, the feedback I get is, well, the tips you're giving really are things that could help all people working in technology. And that is true. But I think what we can do as people who are working in technology currently is look at some of the things that I'm going to suggest to you to do and look at how you can apply them to a person who's not the majority. So while it would work for anyone who's working in technology, look at applying some of the tips I'm going to give to you today to someone who's in a more marginalized group or who's not the majority on your team or when you go to a conference. So the first thing I want to suggest to you that we can do to have a more inclusive environment, which will result in more diversity in our industry, is think of how you can ally, and think of it not something that you are, but something that you do sometimes. So think of it as a verb, some actions that you can take. And they can be small actions, and you're not going to be doing them all the time. Like myself, I'm chairperson of the Java community process, but I spend some time thinking about how I can help to change the technology world by doing some small things for some of the people that are in it. The second thing is remember that it's intersectional, so everybody's experience is going to be different, but we're all going to make mistakes, and the thing you have to remember is that you need to listen here. Even for my own personal experience, I often will get asked questions about my experience, but as I start to talk, I'm interrupted. So be willing to have the conversation, but also be open and willing to listen more than you're talking. And then as you start to implement some of these tips, remember you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay as long as you're doing it in a kind, open fashion. So people are going to make mistakes, and I always try to remind people that it happens, and especially if you're a man, people overlook that. There's actually has been a study that people who talk about these type of things, it's actually a plus for you unless you're a minority. So keep that in mind. Be aware of assignment distribution. So look at the people on your team and who's doing the high priority work or assignments and who's doing more of the housework. So that's the way I like to look at it, is housework versus real work, and that varies based on what the people's job roles are, right? Obviously, if they're a project manager, they're not necessarily going to be owning and writing the code, but if it's a developer on your team, who is it that's doing the real work of owning and writing the code? Is it always the men, or is it always a certain type of person? Look at how you can distribute the assignments across your team so that you're giving the high profile work, the real work, to people who are not the majority. Make sure that you're allowing people to speak up in the meeting. So if we want to have those benefits that I talked about in the beginning of a diverse team, we have to ensure that everybody on the team is actually participating and contributing. So I like to think about assignment distribution, and if you yourself can do this as well. So make sure that as you're assigning tasks, you're doing this, but also look at it for yourself. Are you doing the high visibility task that are going to get you to that next level to be promoted, to keep you in the industry? A friendly environment is actually one of the reasons that people leave, and then why I think we continue to see the majority of development teams being white males, is the fact that birds of a feather do flock together. That's why we have BOF sessions here at conferences like this, right? So we want to create that inclusive environment. I think there's statistics even around women who leave technology. About 47% of women leave technology within 10 years, where if you look at just males, it's about 15%. So there's something in the environment that we're creating in our workplaces that's kind of pushing out people who aren't the majority. So look at things you can do to have people participating not just in the work, but in kind of the after hours activities. So by a friendly environment, so something that's going to make everyone feel welcome and comfortable, whether that's maybe you go out for a different type of meal. Is it lunch versus dinner versus beer after work, versus maybe do something where you're going to have everyone coming. And again, those skills of being open and listening will help you here. So ask questions about what's going to make people feel more comfortable in your work environment. And when you describe your work environment for new hires, this will help as well in terms of bringing in people who are more diverse. Think about the way you describe the position and your work environment. Is it an environment for rock star ninjas, which apply to a certain type of person, or is it appealing to those things that are going to be more beneficial to a more diverse crowd? Speak up in meetings and forums and conferences. So this is something that you can do. The most common examples are interrupting. Oftentimes, this happens for women more often than men, but also just not people not wanting to speak up. So intervene in those situations. For instance, say, I don't think we heard this person was finished talking yet. If there's someone who makes a suggestion that's not heard, you can always amplify that suggestion if it seems like it wasn't being responded to positively by the group. Oh, I think that was a good idea. Ask a clarifying question and give credit to the person who actually made that first suggestion. Intervening is more in those types of situations where you can tell someone's uncomfortable, and oftentimes some of the feedback that I get from people after this talk is, well, I don't ever do any of those inappropriate activities, so I'm not part of the problem. But I think the key part of the problem is, good people sitting by and not doing anything or just leaving. So being willing to speak up, and it doesn't have to be a confrontation. It can sometimes be a redirection or moving on to a topic that's more appropriate or making the people in the group more comfortable. There are certain character traits that are often attributed more often to women than men in particular. So be aware of how you're describing people, or people of a certain race. You think of certain attributes. That's a stereotype that most people have, whether they're aware of it or not. That's unconscious bias that we all have. But be aware of how you're thinking about character traits, or if you're hearing someone describe a character trait. So my experience is obviously as a woman, so I told you it's intersectional, so everyone's experience is going to be different, but certain character traits that have happened for me in particular are, when I first started, especially before I kind of adapted, was I was abrasive or cold or aggressive, or bossy. So there's certain words like abrasive and bossy, for instance, that you really don't use for men to describe their behavior. So if you think about it in your head, well, if this person was more like me, how would I describe this behavior? Would I say they were abrasive, or would I say that they're tough or they're a strong leader? Because that's how I thought of myself, but that's not how I was being perceived. So some of the things that you can do is think about it. So think about it inside your own head, but also when you hear other people describing behavior, bring that up and offer that counterpoint, right, of what it could be. So I think that's often very helpful, because as a woman, I did adjust my behavior. I think it's human nature that you mimic what's around you. So I was behaving exactly as all the men were around me. And I was being perceived very differently. So while I don't like to promote things like women, smiling more, I even find sometimes if I just give a smile rather than say the exact same thing, I'll be perceived very differently. So I've adjusted, but that's my choice. I don't think that's necessarily, a thing I'm going to recommend. I'm just giving my personal experience that I noticed is a different perception if I just smile, if I'm behaving the same way as a man behaves. So think about that in your head, how you're thinking about character trait assignment and character criticism, because it's something that definitely has happened to me in the past and happens still. Leveling the playing field, right? So there's certain norms in technology that I've discovered being in the field for a while that often when I talk to people who are new to the field or coming in, don't necessarily recognize. So self-promotion and negotiation are two of the biggest ones. So these are things that we, as people who are already here, who have figured it out, can share with the people on our team who are new, who might not know about it. So encourage that self-promotion, right? So suggest ways that people can do that, or do it on their behalf. Give a shout out 1-2 levels up to the management chain. Great work by this person on the team. So again, this works for anyone, but try to do it for someone who's not the majority. So one of the minority on the team. Whether that's women, people of color, people who are different from you, right? Call out their work and make sure that it's recognized. And also the negotiation, and not just for salaries, but the stats I showed in the beginning are very clear that there is a salary disparity, but encourage that negotiation. Oftentimes people will just accept what they're given for a salary, and that never works. It's always something that you need to negotiate for, and not just the money, but the flexible benefits, the assignments that are given, right? So don't just take the assignments, get the assignments given, the high profile ones, to people that need more encouragement to stay in the field, need more help advancing. Educate yourself about unconscious bias. We do all have bias. It's part of being human. And one of the best ways that I've found to uncover my own unconscious bias is not the training or not talking about it, but again, actually doing something. Mentoring somebody who's different from you is one of the best ways to learn more about a different type of person. That's how I've learned more. That's how I've advanced in my career, is by having mentors who are different from me. So not by having women that would mentor me. Not that I had too many to choose from in the first place, but I think that really did help me in my career, was having that mentor who was someone different from me. They could learn from my experience, and I could learn from theirs and from their perceptions. So I encourage you to think about mentoring someone who's different from you. And support and encourage diverse speakers. I think public speaking is one of the best ways to advance your career. And anyone in the technology field can do this, no matter what you're doing. So support and encourage speakers. Don't just leave the call for paper opens, but go out and actively ask someone to come and speak and tell them you want them there. Don't just tell them to do the call for papers. That's one of the best ways to get a diverse set of speakers, and also to up the profile of people who are more diverse, so we don't see just everyone who's speaking being the same. And that helps conference organizers as well, because the people in the audience feel more comfortable and more open and welcome when they're seeing speakers who are more like themselves. So you're all here, and that makes you awesome. But as I said, you will make mistakes, but if we're making all of these small changes every day, we will start to be the change that we wish to see in this industry. And on a closing thing, I'll just say, act today on one of those things. And one of the simplest ways is to look at who you're following on Twitter or your social media, right? Are you always following people who are similar to you, or are you following people who are a little bit different from you, think different from you, look different from you? I encourage you to take a look at that, because I think that's oftentimes with people I talk to, that they don't recognize that the people they're following are an awful lot like them. So thanks for coming to my talk. I hope you learned an action that you can take to support more diversity inclusion in the technology industry, that you can go do one of these things today at the conference. And if you want to talk to me, I'm around the rest of the week. I have a BOF tomorrow night, a quickie tomorrow. You can talk to me on Twitter as well. I'm Heather VC on Twitter. Thank you. All right, thank you.